Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Haley with Haley Stitches, and today I'm going to show you a really quick fabric scrap project that will turn these scraps into a patchwork scrunchie. Now this is a super fun and quick project. If you want the entire supply list, head over to my blog and you'll also get a step-by-step photo tutorial there. Let's get started. To get started, you'll want to go through your scrap pile and pick out a few scraps that you'll want to use. The size that you'll need to cut your scraps to are 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. So I have 6 rectangles of this fabric and 6 rectangles of this fabric for a total of 12 scrappy rectangles. And you can choose as many different fabrics or as few fabrics as you want. Today's tutorial will show you how to do it with 2 separate fabrics. The next step is to lay out our fabric in the design that we want them to be with our scrunchie. So I am just going to alternate the fabrics because I am using 2. I've decided on this alternating 4-patch design, and I'm just going to do this exact same design 2 more times so that I use up all 12 of my rectangles. In total, you should have 6 rectangles on top and 6 rectangles on bottom. Now it is time to start sewing our pieces together. So we want to sew the top row onto the bottom row. So how we'll do that is just flip the top fabric over onto the bottom fabric, and then we are going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew these together along the line where they join. So we are going to do this for all 12 of our pieces of fabric. In the end, we should have 6 of these units sewn together. So let's head to our sewing machine. Now let's piece together our fabric. So again, I have it all lined up here, and then I'm going to put it in my machine using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew it together. And I will continue to do this for all 6 of my columns of fabric, and I am going to chain piece them together to make things go a little faster. So what that means is that I'm not going to remove this first one that I sewn together. I'm just going to keep going in an assembly line fashion because that will speed things up. All right, now that we are all done, we will have a big chain of our 6 columns that look like this, and I am just going to snip them all apart. After we trim all of our pieces apart, it will look like this, and we should have 6 of these. And what we want to do next is press our seam allowance open, and this will just reduce the bulk inside the middle of the scrunchie. So I'm going to head over to my iron and just press all of these seams open so they lie flat. So this is what our seam will look like when it's all pressed open, and this is the front. So I've laid them out in the alternating pattern that I want my scrunchie to be. So really, again, I'm just alternating the fabrics here. I can only fit 4 into frame, but we are going to do the same thing for all of them. So what we will do is now we want to sew them together into one long row. So to do that, what we're going to do is just flip one of these over onto itself and line it up. So when these are together, we want to have our seams line up the best we can. It's not going to be a huge deal if they don't, because your scrunchie is a circle and it'll be all scrunched up, so you really won't even notice. But you can go ahead and pin if you want it to be more exact. So we are going to sew along the seam here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like we did before. And we will continue to do that until we have sewn all of our pieces together into one long rectangle. Okay, now let's sew our units together. And I'm still going to chain piece these, and then I will continue chain piecing until they all are in one long rectangle. So you'll see again, we have this long strip. So I'm going to trim these apart so that we can sew them together. All right, now that our whole piece is sewn together, we are going to flip it over, and we want to press these seams open, the ones that we just sewn together. We want to press these open again to reduce some bulk, so I am going to do that real quick. So this is what the back of our fabric will look like right now. All of our seams are pressed open, and all 12 of our rectangles are sewn together into one long rectangle. So the next step is to actually sew the ends of the rectangle together. So we're gonna fold it in half with the right sides together. And then what we will do is sew all the way down so that it is in the shape of an inside out tube. So let's get to our machine again and sew this together. All right, so again, I am not gonna pin this, but if you wanted all of these seams to intersect nicely, go ahead and pin. But what we will do is just sew this whole tube together. Now we have a completely sewn together inside out tube. This is what our fabric should look like now. So again, it's an inside out tube of fabric. So what we need to do is turn it right side out. What you have to do is basically just turn the whole thing inside out. If you have a turner, you can definitely use that, but what I'm gonna do is just kind of shove all of the extra fabric in there and then slowly keep pulling it so that it comes right side out. Now our tube of fabric is completely right side out, so we can now move on to the next step. So now you want to grab your piece of elastic. So I am using a black elastic just because that's all that they had. It doesn't matter what color you find and what color you use, but I cut mine to an 8-inch strip. And then I am going to take a safety pin and just pin it through one end. So this is gonna make it a lot easier to get the elastic all the way through our scrunchie. So how we're gonna do this is just feed the elastic through the tube of fabric. And I have definitely not mastered this skill yet. So you can see it takes a little bit of time. If you plan to make several of these, it'll get faster as you go. I think this is maybe like the 5th or 6th one I've made so far. So definitely not enough practice yet to be able to make this a nice smooth process. But it does not take very long, even if you're brand new to making scrunchies. Okay, so now I have both ends of my elastic. And I'm gonna be careful so that the elastic doesn't twist. You don't want it to be twisted in there at all. And now I can take off the safety pin. And now what we wanna do, so you can see we are getting our scrunchie shape here. So next what we need to do is overlap our elastic, and then we're going to zigzag stitch back and forth over it so that it stays in place. So let's head to our machine. So this might be a little bit better of a view here, but again, what we're gonna do is overlap our two pieces of elastic. And then I already adjusted the settings on my machine to go to the zigzag stitch, and I did widen the stitch. So now we have to feed it into our machine. And then we're gonna go forward. And we're also gonna use the back stitch in our machine to go back. And we're just gonna do this a couple times to make sure that the elastic is secure. Okay, so this is what mine ended up looking like. So you can see it's not even completely evened out here, but I am just gonna leave it because it's in the middle, so it really doesn't matter, and it's not gonna look pretty. It's just kind of hard for me to do it while I'm on camera. So I'm gonna leave it this way and then just trim off these ends. Okay, so I trimmed off my excess threads and this is what it looks like. So now we just need to finish it. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna fold one side of this fabric in. So just fold it in like a 1/2 inch or so. And then the other raw edge we're gonna tuck inside so it'll have a nice finished clean line. Okay, so it should look like this. So there's no frayed edges or anything. So now what we can do is just do a straight stitch over the top. So this will make it so that your elastic won't be able to move at all inside your scrunchie. If you want your elastic to be able to move freely, you will have to hand stitch this all the way around. But just for the sake of time and because I don't really mind if my elastic is stuck in one spot, I am just gonna sew completely over everything and sew it all together. And it doesn't matter what the seam allowance is here, just make sure that you are sewing through each layer of fabric. I'm gonna do a couple stitches and then back stitch. Just because I want everything to hold into place nicely. And then I'll stitch all the way down. And I will back stitch at the end too. All right. And this is what we end up with. So just a nice line there. If I wanted it to blend in a little bit more, I definitely could have chosen a navy thread, but this is just a light gray thread and that's totally fine for me. So I am going to trim up these excess threads and then I will show you the final product. Okay, so this is what the final product looks like. A really, really cute little navy scrunchie. This fabric is pretty tame compared to some of the other scrunchies that I've made. If you want to check out the other scrunchies I've made, you can definitely head over to my Instagram. I have photos of 3 other scrunchies that I've made so far that are a lot more colorful. Just as some examples of what you really can do to make it your own. But that is how easy it is to make a scrunchie out of your fabric scraps. Now you have everything you need in order to make your very own scrappy patchwork scrunchie. If you make your own, I would love to see it on Instagram. So tag me at Haley Stitches so I can check it out. If you liked today's tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more tutorials just like it, please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you all next time. Bye.